Okay, welcome back everyone to the deep dive.
Yeah, hello again.
This is where we, really get into the weeds on some of the trickier parts of metabolic healing, the stuff that maybe needs a bit more unpacking than we can do in the main episodes.
Absolutely. And today, we're tackling a big one, maybe the biggest hurdle mentally for people.
Oh, definitely. It's the concept that scares almost everyone who starts trying to eat properly after restricting for so long. We're talking about the healing weight paradox.
This is the wall, seriously. This
Uh,
is the point where so many people who are right on the edge of finally healing their metabolism for good, they panic.
They see the number on the scale go up, and they immediately think, this isn't working, I'm failing, and they just
Yeah.
reverse course. Back to restriction, back to feeling awful.
Back to being metabolically broke, it's heartbreaking, honestly. So we need to be really clear today. Pretty much everything you've been taught about weight loss, especially that initial phase, it's backwards.
Completely backwards. So our mission, really, for this deep dive, is to kind of inoculate you against that fear, give you the understanding you need to push through.
So let's define the paradox itself. What is it, fundamentally?
It's this. When you finally stop starving yourself, when you stop restricting calories, and you intentionally start feeding your cells what they actually need, enough carbohydrates, enough protein, controlled fats.
You are going to gain some weight initially, full stop. It's not theoretical, it's a mandatory physiological response.
Yeah, we're talking, what, maybe 5 pounds, sometimes up to 15, even 20 pounds?
Yeah.
Usually in those first, say, 4 to 6 weeks.
Exactly. And understanding what those pounds are made of is absolutely critical. It's the key to not freaking out.
Because that initial gain, it is not fat, it's not a sign you're doing something wrong, it's actually proof your body is finally getting the resources it needs to switch gears.
Switching from that desperate survival mode into thriving mode. It sounds dramatic, but it's literally your body saving its own life by rebuilding essential reserves.
We see this exact pattern play out over and over again.
Yeah.
Thousands of people. Think about Michelle's story. We mentioned her before.
Yeah, classic case. She was, 43, stuck at 180 pounds, hair falling out, always cold, cycles totally gone. Just classic signs of metabolic shutdown.
And she was trying to survive on, 1,100 calories a day. Maybe.
Just textbook metabolic destruction from chronic undereating. So she starts the protocol, bumps up her calories to 2,000 real food, balanced macros, the whole thing.
And then what happens? About 10 days in.
She calls us, basically in tears. The scale had jumped 12 pounds. 12 pounds in 10 days? I mean, can you imagine? Psychologically, that's devastating if you don't get what's happening under the hood.
Absolutely terrifying. If she'd listened to that panic, she would have immediately cut back to 1,100 calories, maybe even less, and just stayed stuck.
But she didn't. She trusted the process, pushed through that fear, and 3 months later,
Down 35 pounds total from where she started. Eating 2,400 calories a day and feeling amazing. Cycles back, energy up, warm hands.
that initial 12-pound spike wasn't a setback. It was the entry fee. It was the signal her body had finally stopped cannibalizing itself and started rebuilding.
So let's really break it down. If those first 5, 10, even 20 pounds aren't fat, what are they? What's actually going on physiologically?
Okay, let's get granular. That first jump on the scale, especially week 1, week 2, the main driver is your body refilling its emergency energy tanks.
Glycogen, right?
Exactly. Glycogen. Think of it like your body's readily available cash reserve of energy. It's stored glucose, mostly in your liver and your muscles.
And if you've been restricting calories or doing keto or very low carb, those reserves are just gone.
Bone dry. Seriously. Your liver should normally hold, 80 to 120 grams. Your muscles, depending on activity levels, maybe 400, 500 grams.
So potentially 600 grams or more of instant energy that's just missing.
Completely missing. And when you finally start giving your body adequate carbs again, 250, 300 grams a day, the kind of amount needed to properly fuel thyroid function.
The body's first job is to refill those stores.
It's absolute top priority before anything else. Now, here's the part that directly translates to scale weight. It's the chemistry.
The water part. This is the math nugget people need to remember.
Yes, every single gram of glycogen that gets stored binds chemically with about 3 grams of water. It needs that water to be stored properly and mobilized quickly when needed. It's just how it works.
Okay, so let's do the math then. If the body needs to restore, say, 600 grams of glycogen.
You've got 600 grams of glycogen plus 3 times that in water. That's 1,800 grams of water.
So 600 plus 1,800 That's 2,400 grams.
which is 2.4 kilograms, or well over 5 pounds right there, just from refilling your essential immediate energy reserves and the water required to store it.
And that's not fat. That's fuel and functional water.
Purely energy reserve and necessary hydration for cellular function. It's life-sustaining. That's why the scale can jump so dramatically in the first few days. Your body is desperately refilling the tank.
And it views that as absolutely non-negotiable.
Okay, so that's a big chunk of it, maybe 5 pounds or more right off the bat. But that's not the whole story of those initial, say, 10 or 15 pounds, is it?
No, not at all. The next big piece is mineral restoration. This adds what you could call the weight of functionality.
Meaning?
Well, years of restriction, especially inadequate calorie or protein intake, just devastates your body's mineral stores. We're talking calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium, all the crucial electrolytes.
The body starts pulling them from wherever it can, right? Like calcium from bones.
Exactly. It sacrifices its own structure, demineralizing bones, letting cellular mineral gradients collapse just to keep the absolute essential mineral levels in the blood stable enough to survive.
This explains why so many people coming from restriction report things like constant muscle cramps, maybe feeling lightheaded, which could be low blood volume,
Yeah.
even if they are taking electrolyte supplements. Right, because the deep stores, the structural stores in bone and inside the cells, are profoundly depleted. Taking a supplement helps the blood levels maybe, but it doesn't rebuild the reserves overnight.
So when you finally start eating enough, providing the building blocks and the energy to utilize them,
Your body starts the slow process of rebuilding. Bones begin, hopefully, to remineralize. Your cells work hard to reestablish those crucial mineral gradients, like the sodium-potassium pumps that drive energy in literally every cell.
and that rebuilding process, it adds physical mass.
It has to. Minerals have weight. Rebuilding bone density adds weight. Restoring intracellular mineral concentrations adds weight. It's structural repair.
I remember reading some of Dr. Ray Peat's work on this, specifically about calcium.
Yes. He pointed out that just achieving proper calcium status alone can significantly boost your metabolic rate, maybe by 15 or 20%. That's huge.
Wow. But getting there means actually storing more calcium, which weighs something.
Exactly. You're gaining the physical weight of improved cellular function, stronger bones, which lays the groundwork for later sustainable fat loss because your whole system is working better.
Okay, so we have glycogen and its associated water, and then mineral restoration. What else contributes to that initial gain?
Cellular hydration is another key piece. Think about cells when they're chronically starved and running on stress hormones.
They're kind of shriveled, dehydrated.
That's a perfect way to put it, like raisins instead of grapes. They're in survival mode, conserving everything, minimizing water content.
So when you start feeding them properly, providing the glucose and the minerals they need to function,
They plump back up, they rehydrate, they become healthy, functional grapes again, and guess what? Healthy, hydrated tissue weighs more than shriveled, dehydrated, dying tissue.
so some of that initial weight gain is literally your cells coming back to life and holding the appropriate amount of water to function metabolically.
Precisely. It's the weight of healthy tissue replacing unhealthy tissue. It's water that supports life, supports mitochondrial function, supports protein synthesis. It's absolutely essential good weight, not just passive fat storage.
Okay, that physiological breakdown makes a lot of sense. Glycogen, water, minerals, cellular hydration. It paints a picture of necessary rebuilding, not failure.
Right. And if the cellular logic isn't enough, we actually have really strong historical proof that this initial gain is just mandatory for recovery.
You're talking about the Minnesota starvation experiment, right?
Yeah, 1944. A really ethically challenging study by today's standards, but incredibly informative. They took healthy, young, fit men.
Conscientious objectors during the war, I think.
That's right. And they subjected them to months of severe calorie restriction to study the effects of starvation, aiming to understand how to best help starving populations in post-war Europe.
And the results were pretty brutal physiologically and psychologically for those men.
Oh, absolutely. They became emaciated, obsessed with food, incredibly irritable, withdrawn, all the hallmarks of starvation syndrome. But the crucial part for our discussion today is the refeeding phase.
What happened when they started giving them more food again?
The researchers tracked everything meticulously. And the key finding, Every single man, 100% of them gained weight rapidly in the initial stages of refeeding.
No exception.
No exceptions. It wasn't optional. It was a built-in biological response. And their data clearly showed a swift, dramatic increase in their percentage of body water during this phase.
Which confirms exactly what we were just talking about, the rapid replenishment of glycogen and its associated water, plus cellular rehydration.
Exactly. The Minnesota study provides large-scale, documented evidence that this initial weight gain during nutritional recovery isn't an anomaly. It's the body's standard, programmed response to coming out of deprivation. It has to rebuild those reserves first.
Okay, so physiologically and historically, the initial gain is necessary. But there is a potential pitfall here, right? A way this can go wrong.
Oh, a massive pitfall. This is where necessary healing weight can actually turn into unnecessary, problematic fat storage. And it all comes down to managing one critical thing.
The fat-to-carbohydrate ratio.
Bingo! This is the mistake we see people make sometimes. They correctly increase their carbohydrates to fuel their thyroid and refill glycogen, which is great. But they also keep their fat intake really high, or even increase it.
Why is that specific combination, high carb and high fat, so problematic? Especially for someone whose metabolism is already kind of sluggish and suppressed.
It comes down to metabolic inflexibility. When your metabolism has been suppressed for a long time, your body's ability to efficiently switch between burning different fuels, mainly glucose from carbs, and fatty acids from dietary fat is impaired.
So what happens when you flood it with both at the same time?
The body, especially the liver, tends to prioritize burning the incoming glucose. It's the preferred fuel for the brain, the nervous system, red blood cells. It gets priority access.
Okay, so if the body is busy dealing with all those new carbs, what happens to the high amount of fat you just ate alongside them?
It doesn't have an easy pathway to get burned for energy right then and there. Your own stored body fat isn't being readily mobilized yet because the emergency signal is starting to turn off. And the dietary fat isn't getting priority because the glucose is hogging the metabolic machinery, so it just gets stored.
Pretty much directly partitioned into storage. Especially if your fat intake is significantly high, say well over 30% of your total calories while you're also eating adequate carbs, you end up creating new fat tissue unnecessarily.
So you get the double whammy, maybe still slightly elevated blood sugar as your body adjusts to the carbs, plus active fat storage from the excess dietary fat.
Exactly. It's the worst combination during that initial healing phase. The goal is strategic.
Give the body enough carbs, like 200, 300 grams or even more, to shout, "The famine is over!"
Refill glycogen and fuel the thyroid properly.
Yes. But keep the dietary fat intake moderate controlled. This forces the body to use that dietary fat efficiently, or ideally, start tapping into its existing stored fat reserves for energy, rather than just storing all the new fat coming in.
What kind of percentage are we talking for fat then, realistically?
It depends a bit on the person's starting point. If you're currently carrying significant excess weight, we generally find keeping dietary fat lower initially works best, maybe around 15 to 20% of your total calories.
Okay, and if someone is leaner, maybe more active, trying to build or maintain muscle,
Then they likely have a bit more metabolic flexibility already, and they can probably handle and might even benefit from a bit higher fat intake, maybe closer to 30%, but still not super high, especially not combined with those higher carbs.
it's about finding that sweet spot that allows healing without promoting unnecessary fat gain during that crucial transition.
Precisely. It lets the thyroid wake up, lets the glycogen refill, but doesn't overwhelm the system with too much dietary fat before it's ready to handle it efficiently.
Let's use Sarah's case again to illustrate this. She gained that initial 18 pounds, which sounds like a lot.
A huge amount mentally. She was 38, started at 195 pounds, eating maybe 1,300 calories, and crucially, her morning temperature was freezing 96.4 Fahrenheit. Stone cold metabolism.
So she starts eating 2,100 calories, which is a big jump. But how was her fat intake managed?
This was key. We kept her fat intake tightly controlled right around 15% of those 2,100 calories. She was really meticulous about tracking her macros.
And she still gained 18 pounds in that first month.
She did, and she was, understandably, ready to quit almost every week. Seeing that scale number climb so high so fast, it takes incredible mental fortitude if you don't grasp the why.
But what was the sign that it was healing weight, not just fat gain from the extra calorie?
Her temperature, that was the objective proof. Despite the scale going up, her morning temperature climbed from 96.4 up to 97.2.
That's a really significant jump metabolically.
It's huge. That kind of rise indicates her thyroid was coming back online, her metabolic rate was increasing, likely burning hundreds more calories per day at rest, even while the scale was going up.
So that 18 pounds wasn't fat. It was the glycogen, the water, the minerals, the cellular rehydration and expansion, the necessary infrastructure rebuild.
Exactly. It was the weight of healing. She eventually decided to put the scale away, trust the temperature readings, trust how she was starting to feel.
And the long-term result.
Phenomenal. She went on to lose 65 pounds total, stabilized her weight, and was comfortably eating 2,600 calories a day to maintain it, feeling fantastic.
If she had panicked at that 18-pound mark, dismissed the temperature rise because the scale scared her,
she'd still be stuck at 195 pounds, freezing cold, eating 1,300 calories, and utterly miserable. That initial healing weight gain was literally the price of admission for her permanent success.
Okay, this really highlights why the scale is just worse than useless in those first 6 weeks or so. It's actively destructive to the process if you let it guide your decisions.
Totally destructive. Because your body is in such massive flux, undergoing repairs and shifts that haven't happened sometimes in decades, the scale number just doesn't reflect the positive compositional changes happening.
So we need to give people a different roadmap. If they can't trust the scale, what should they be tracking? What should they expect week by week during that critical initial phase?
Managing expectations through this period is key. Let's lay out a rough timeline.
Okay, weeks 1 and 2, what's happening?
This is that super rapid glycogen and water phase we talked about. Expect the scale to jump, potentially pretty fast, 3, 5, maybe even 8 pounds in these first 2 weeks.
How about energy levels?
Often you'll see a slight initial improvement here. Not boundless energy yet, but because your blood sugar isn't crashing constantly anymore, that desperate fatigue might lift a bit.
Any downsides in weeks 1 to 2?
Digestion is usually the main one. Your stomach capacity is likely shrunk from restriction. Eating normal-sized meals, again, can feel, well, really full. Maybe some bloating as your digestive system starts to wake up and enzyme production adjusts. That's normal.
Okay, moving into weeks 3 and 4. Does the rapid gain slow down?
Yeah, the really fast glycogen water gain usually slows, but the deeper restoration minerals, cellular repair continues steadily. This phase, weeks 3-4, can actually be the toughest psychologically for some people.
Why is that?
It can feel like hitting a metabolic wall. You're not running on those frantic stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline anymore, so that kind of wired fake energy disappears. You might actually feel more tired temporarily and need significantly more sleep.
Because the body is shifting from panic mode to repair mode.
Exactly. Repair takes energy and resources. Irritability can sometimes spike too as those stress hormone patterns shift dramatically. This is where trusting the process is vital.
What are the subtle positive signs to look for in weeks 3-4, even if the scale is stuck or creeping up a tiny bit more?
Diaper sleep is a big one. You might find yourself needing like 8 or even 9 hours, but waking up feeling more genuinely rested. Mood might start to stabilize, a little fewer extreme highs and lows. Cravings might begin to lessen. These are signs the deep cellular rebuilding is happening.
You're trading that fake wired energy for real restorative processes.
You got it. And then comes the magic zone.
Weeks 5 and 6, the resolution zone.
Yeah, this is often where things really start to click and feel better, where the initial adaptations are largely complete. The big thing we often see here is a sudden, sometimes dramatic, release of water weight.
Why does that happen around this point?
It's typically tied to inflammation resolving. Chronic undereating and the stress it causes create systemic inflammation throughout the body. Cells are swollen, tissues are holding on to extra fluid as a protective measure.
Like the body's in a constant state of low-grade emergency.
Exactly. Around week 5 or 6, when the body finally feels consistently safe and fueled, that systemic inflammation can plummet quite rapidly.
And all that inflammatory water just gets flushed out.
Yep. We see people suddenly drop 3, 4, even 5 pounds seemingly overnight. It's not fat loss yet, it's the release of that inflammatory fluid. People report their joints stop aching, puffiness in their face goes down, their rings suddenly fit loosely again.
That must feel amazing.
Yeah.
And that's the point where true sustainable fat loss can actually begin.
That's usually the turning point. The body has rebuilt its essential reserves, calmed the inflammatory storm, and now feels safe enough to start efficiently mobilizing stored energy, fat, because it trusts the fuel supply is reliable.
Okay, so that timeline is super helpful. But during all those weeks, people need tangible things to track besides the scale. Let's nail those down.
Number 1, non-negotiable. The most honest marker you have.
Body temperature.
Your basal body temperature, taken first thing in the morning before getting out of bed. If you are truly healing your metabolism, your temperature must rise over time.
What kind of numbers are we looking for? What's the target?
We want to see it consistently moving up towards, ideally, 97.5 to 98.0 degrees Fahrenheit, or even slightly higher, around 36.4 to 36.7 Celsius. Many people start in the low 96s or even 95s.
And why is that temperature rise so significant metabolically?
Because temperature is metabolism, fundamentally. It's a direct reflection of cellular energy production and heat generation. Even a seemingly small rise, say 0.2 or 0.3 degrees Fahrenheit, indicates your thyroid is working better, your cells are burning more fuel.
Equating to maybe 150 extra calories burned per day, just a rest.
At least. And if you achieve that bigger shift from the low 96s up towards 98.0, you've essentially turned up your internal thermostat significantly. That could mean an extra 300, 400, maybe even 500 calories burned every single day, effortlessly.
That's the metabolic advantage that makes fat loss sustainable later on. Your body's just running hotter more efficiently.
Exactly. It's the foundation. Okay, marker number 2.
Pulse rate.
Resting pulse rate, yeah. Also taken first thing in the morning. It should ideally strengthen and become more regular, moving into a healthy range, typically around 75 to 85 beats per minute for most people at rest.
What does a low pulse usually indicate? Below 70, say.
Often a sign of metabolic suppression. The heart is conserving energy, blood volume might be lower. It's working harder but less efficiently. A stronger, regular pulse in that 75-85 range suggests the heart muscle is well-fueled and blood volume is healthy.
Makes sense. Okay, temp and pulse are key vitals. What about subjective markers?
Energy and sleep are huge. That awful afternoon energy crash that plagues so many people, that should start to disappear as your blood sugar stabilizes.
And sleep. We mentioned needing more initially.
Right, you might need 8-9 hours during that intense repair phase, weeks 3 to 6 especially. But the quality of that sleep should improve dramatically. You wake up feeling genuinely refreshed, restored, not just like you managed to pause consciousness for a bit. Eventually, you might stabilize back to 7-8 hours, but feel way better on it.
And the mental side. Cravings, mood.
Big shifts there too. Those intense, specific cravings, especially for sugar or caffeine, should decrease significantly as your cells get the glucose they actually need. Cellular starvation is resolving.
And mood. Anxiety, maybe low-level depression that often comes with restriction.
That often starts to lift.
Yeah.
So much of that is tied to unstable blood sugar, nutrient deficiencies, and the downstream effects of chronic stress hormones. As those things normalize, mood tends to stabilize. Less anxiety, less obsessive thinking about food.
So the mantra really is, if the scale is going up, BUT, my temperature is rising, my pulse is normalizing, my energy is better, my sleep is deeper, and my mood cravings are improving, I am winning.
You are absolutely winning. You're healing. Trust those physiological signs of health improvement over the meaningless number on the scale during this specific window.
Okay, let's dive even deeper now into the specific systems that are healing and physically adding that initial weight. The thyroid is a big one.
Huge. Long-term restriction is basically interpreted by your body as famine, and the primary survival response is to slam the brakes on energy expenditure.
Which means throttling thyroid hormone production.
Specifically, the conversion of the storage hormone T4 into the active hormone T3. T3 is what really drives metabolic rate in the cells. In chronic restriction, T3 levels can plummet by 40, even 50%.
Keeps you alive on minimal fuel, but leaves you feeling cold, tired, and sluggish.
Exactly. Now, when you finally provide adequate fuel, especially those necessary carbohydrates, T3 production starts to ramp back up, sometimes quite quickly.
And this isn't just a chemical shift, right? There's a physical component to the thyroid waking up that adds weight.
Absolutely. It drives actual cellular renovation. As T3 levels rise, cells that were shrunken and suppressed literally start to expand back to their normal, healthy size. They increase protein synthesis, building functional machinery.
And critically, they start building more mitochondria.
Yes, more of those cellular power plants that actually burn fuel, consume oxygen, and generate heat. All of that bigger cells, more protein, more mitochondria, requires resources and has physical mass.
So you're literally gaining the weight of a functioning thyroid system.
That's a great way to phrase it. It's the weight of building the metabolic machinery needed for a higher resting energy expenditure. This structural build-out is a big part of what happens in those first 4-6 weeks, and then it stabilizes.
And after it stabilizes, you reap the rewards. That higher T3 function means you're burning hundreds more calories passively each day.
leading to true fat loss later on, not the muscle and organ wasting that happens during restriction. It's an investment of resources, weight now, for a massive metabolic payout later.
Okay, thyroid is key. We also touched on inflammation resolving and that whoosh of water weight. Let's clarify why restriction causes so much inflammation in the first place.
It's fundamentally stressful. The body perceives chronic undereating as a threat. It's constantly having to break down its own tissues, muscle primarily, to create glucose via gluconeogenesis. This process is stressful and inflammatory,
Plus, the constant low-grade stress elevates cortisol.
which chronically becomes pro-inflammatory. The whole system is in a state of emergency, leading to cellular swelling, joint aches, water retention. The body is trying to protect damaged or stressed tissues.
So it holds on to water systemically.
Massive amounts sometimes. It's not uncommon for someone to be holding 5, 10, even 15 pounds of purely inflammatory water weight when they're deep in restriction.
And that release typically happens when...
Around weeks 4 at
Sure, yeah. Coinciding with hormonal shifts, particularly cortisol dropping as the body feels safe. When that constant stress signal turns off, the inflammation markers retreat, and the body finally lets go of all that excess fluid it was holding on to.
That's the puffiness disappearing, the joints feeling better moment.
Exactly. It's a
Right.
very noticeable, often sudden sign that the internal environment is shifting from crisis to calm.
And the liver, our metabolic command center, how does it play into this initial weight gain?
Oh, the liver is central. In a restricted state, as we said, liver glycogen is totally depleted. This puts immense stress on the liver because it's desperately trying to maintain blood sugar levels.
Right, mainly through that inefficient stress hormone-driven process of gluconeogenesis making glucose from protein. It's working overtime under duress.
So when you start eating enough carbs,
The liver immediately prioritizes refilling its own glycogen stores. This happens very quickly, often within the first 24 to 48 hours.
and how much weight does that liver glycogen refill add?
The liver holds maybe 100, 120 grams of glycogen, plus the associated water, 3x that amount. So you're looking at potentially another pound or two just from the liver getting its immediate fuel reserve back online.
Okay, seems small, but it contributes to that initial jump and the benefit of a full liver.
Huge cascade effect. A glycogen-replete liver can efficiently convert T4 to T3. It can stabilize blood sugar smoothly without relying on cortisol spikes. It can perform its detoxification duties much more effectively. The feeling of well-being often improves almost instantly once the liver is happy, even if the scale is up.
Makes sense. One more adjustment piece: digestion and stomach capacity.
Yeah, this is a practical comfort thing people need to expect. If you've spent years eating tiny, infrequent meals, your stomach's functional capacity literally adapts. It shrinks.
So when you suddenly start eating normal-sized, balanced meals, again, say 600, 700, 800 calories at a sitting,
It can feel really uncomfortable at first, like you're stuffed after half the meal. Bloating is common. The stomach muscles need time to stretch and adapt back to handling normal volumes.
and enzyme production needs to catch up too.
Absolutely. Your body needs to upregulate the production of digestive enzymes, proteases, amylases, lipases to handle the increased load of protein, carbs, and fats. Gut motility, the speed things move through, also needs to recalibrate.
How long does that digestive adjustment usually take?
Typically, the worst of the bloating and excessive fullness resolves within about 2 to 3 weeks, as long as you're consistent with the new way of eating.
So quitting because you feel bloated in week 1 is basically short-circuiting that necessary adaptation.
Completely. You have to give your digestive system the time and consistent input it needs to normalize. That temporary discomfort is part of the weight of recovery, you could say. It passes.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to exercise performance. This confuses people too. Why do some feel heavier or slower initially?
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive, right? You're finally fueling yourself properly. Shouldn't you feel like Superman?
You'd think.
Yeah.
But often, people report feeling a bit sluggish or like their workouts are harder at first.
It goes back to what they were running on before. Often, people deep in restriction, especially if they were also over-exercising, were operating purely on stress hormones.
That cortisol-fueled fake energy you mentioned.
Exactly. Adrenaline and cortisol were constantly pumping to mobilize any available fuel, often by breaking down muscle tissue. It can create a feeling of being wired, driven, almost manic energy during workouts.
But it's destructive energy.
Totally. So when you start eating properly, providing ample glucose, those stress hormones naturally decrease. The emergency is over.
And the body shifts from running on panic fumes to running on actual stable fuel like glycogen.
Right. And that transition can feel different. less edgy, maybe less explosive initially. Plus, your muscles are now refilling with glycogen and water, which literally makes them heavier, so you might feel less light or springy for a short period.
How long does that adaptation usually take for performance?
Similar time frame, usually around that 4 to 6 week mark. Once the body fully adapts to using glycogen efficiently, gets the mitochondria rebuilt, and hormonal balance improves.
Then the real performance benefits kick in.
Then you often see an explosion in true endurance and strength. Recovery between workouts becomes way faster because you're not constantly cannibalizing muscle. You build real, sustainable capacity, not that shaky, stress-driven pseudo-performance.
That makes sense. You're building a bigger, more reliable engine.
Exactly, which ties into body composition changes and why measurements are so much more valuable than the scale here.
Let's talk about muscle supercompensation, what's happening there.
Okay, so muscles that have been restricted are flat, depleted, dehydrated, like deflated balloons. When you start giving them the fuel, glucose, and building blocks, protein they need,
They fill back up.
they inflate, basically. They rapidly soak up glycogen, pull in water, and increase protein synthesis to repair and rebuild themselves. They return to their normal, healthy, hydrated size and density.
Bodybuilders call this filling out, right, when they come out of a depletion phase.
Precisely. It's a dramatic visual and physical change. And that process, just muscles refilling to their proper size with glycogen and water, can easily add 5, 6, 7 pounds to the scale in those early weeks.
Again, weight gain that is absolutely not fat. It's functional muscle tissue regaining its volume.
100%. And this is why the scale is so deceptive. Your waist measurement might actually be starting to shrink slowly as that inflammatory water drops and maybe a tiny bit of fat mobilization begins.
But your weight is up because your arms, legs, glutes are filling out with healthy muscle tissue.
Exactly. You might be losing inches off your waist while gaining weight overall. This is a positive recompensation. It proves the metabolism is prioritizing rebuilding lean tissue.
So the recommendation is crystal clear. Ditch the scale, especially for those first 6 weeks.
Put it in the closet. Seriously. Get out a tape measure. Track your waist circumference, maybe hip or thigh if you like, but waist is key. Track how your clothes are fitting. Track your temperature. Track your energy. Those are your real data points.
Okay, to make sure this whole process goes smoothly, the glycogen refill, the mineral restoration, the muscle filling out, we need to focus on the right kinds of foods while still respecting that moderate fat rule.
Yes, the food choices matter for efficiency. We want things that provide readily accessible fuel and the specific nutrients the thyroid and cells desperately need.
So things like ripe fruits, simple sugars, why are they particularly good here?
Because the fructose component, especially from ripe fruit or things like honey or maple syrup, is exceptionally good at rapidly restoring liver glycogen specifically. It doesn't require a lot of complex digestion and gets right to where it's needed to signal safety to the liver.
And quality dairy. I mentioned calcium.
Crucial. Provides that vital calcium for metabolic rate, plus high-quality, easily digestible protein for rebuilding tissues, and other minerals like potassium and phosphorus. Full-fat dairy is fine, but again, monitor the total percentage of fat in the diet.
Orange juice often comes up in pro-metabolic circles. Why?
It's kind of a powerhouse for this phase. Loads of potassium, which is critical for cellular pumps and fluid balance, folate, vitamin C, and easily digestible simple sugars, sucrose, fructose, glucose, that support thyroid function and energy levels quickly.
Good sources of carbs.
White rice is often well-tolerated, easily digestible starch, low in anti-nutrients. Potatoes, if tolerated. Sourdough bread sometimes. The key is easily broken down carbohydrates.
And for tissue repair, gut health.
Bone broth is fantastic, rich in glycine, proline, and other amino acids needed for rebuilding connective tissue and supporting gut lining integrity. Plus, minerals. Gelatin is great too.
Seafood.
Absolutely essential if possible. Provides iodine and selenium, the two most critical minerals for thyroid hormone synthesis and conversion, T4 to T3. Plus, high-quality protein. Oysters are nutritional powerhouses. Whitefish is great.
And the fats. Saturated fats like butter, coconut oil.
They definitely have a role. Saturated fats support healthy cell membranes and are precursors for hormone production, including steroid hormones. But again, the dose makes the poison, especially early on. They must be kept moderate.
Back to that 15-20% range if overweight, maybe up to 30% if lean active of total calories.
That's the safest range generally to allow the carbs to do their job without triggering excess fat storage. Use fat strategically for flavor and function. Don't just pour them on everything.
And it's about balance and strategic fueling for repair.
Mm-hmm.
We see these success stories all the time, don't we? People who brave that initial gain.
Every single week, Jennifer, I remember, gained about 15 pounds in her first month, felt discouraged but stuck with it, tracking her temp. Ended up losing 55 pounds total, eating way more, energy through the roof.
Mark gained maybe 8 or 10 pounds, pushed through the discomfort, saw his testosterone levels double, and lost 35 pounds overall, feeling stronger than ever.
And Lisa had one of the toughest mental battles, gaining over 20 pounds in about 6 weeks. She almost quit so many times, but she focused on the non-scale victories, the temperature rise, and within a year, she'd lost 70 pounds, and with her doctor's guidance, was able to come off her thyroid medication.
That initial weight gain wasn't a roadblock. It was the foundation for their freedom.
It was the non-negotiable first step.
Okay, so wrapping this up, let's bring it back to the core choice facing you, the listener, right now.
It really boils down to this. Are you brave enough to accept a temporary, necessary weight gain to achieve permanent metabolic healing and fat loss?
The choice is gain 5, 10, maybe 15 pounds of primarily water, glycogen, minerals, and cellular hydration over about 6 weeks in order to heal your metabolism, rebuild your thyroid function, replenish your cells.
And then go on to lose 30, 40, 50 pounds or more of actual fat permanently while eating more food and feeling fantastic.
That's option A. Option B is
stay restricted. Stay terrified of the scale. Keep cutting calories every time it nudges up. Keep sabotaging the healing process before it even gets started. And stay metabolically broken, cold, tired, and struggling indefinitely.
the biggest hurdle, honestly, isn't physiological, it's mental.
It's breaking that deeply ingrained toxic programming that society drills into us, that hunger is virtuous, that fullness is failure, and that any weight gain, regardless of context, is bad.
That programming is wrong. It's metabolically illiterate. It has to be replaced with physiological truth.
So let's repeat that mantra one more time. What do you need to tell yourself when the scale inevitably goes up in those first few weeks?
The scale going up while my temperature is rising, my pulse is improving, my energy is better, and my sleep is deeper is proof my body is healing.
Say it every day if you have to. Write it down. Stick it on your mirror. Trust the markers of improving health, not the marker of gravitational pull.
Knowing what that weight actually is, the liver refilling, the cells rehydrating, the muscles repairing, the mitochondria rebuilding that knowledge is your shield against the panic. It gives you the confidence to stay the course through those critical first 6 weeks.
And look, if you need even more motivation to embrace this necessary healing weight, maybe we should briefly touch on the truly terrifying consequences of staying in restriction long term. Dr. Presciutti, whose work forms the foundation here at BioSpark Health, often emphasizes the darker findings from that Minnesota study.
Beyond just the mental anguish, you mean the physical atrophy.
Exactly. The body doesn't just neatly burn fat when you restrict calories, especially chronically. It starts making sacrifices.
How much muscle loss are we talking?
In the Minnesota study, roughly 33%, a third of the total weight lost was lean body mass, mostly muscle. But it gets worse.
The organs.
Vital organs atrophy significantly. Their hearts shrank, on average, by about 30%. Their livers lost almost half their functional mass. Other organs showed similar shrinkage.
So even if you think you have plenty of fat to lose, staying in chronic restriction forces your body to literally eat your heart, your liver, your muscles alive to survive.
Every single day you stay in that deeply restricted state, you are actively degrading vital internal organs and lean tissues that you may never fully recover, even if you lose weight on the scale. That scale loss comes at a devastating internal cost.
That's a profoundly sobering thought. The healing weight is rebuilding. Restriction is self-destruction.
Precisely. Metabolic damage is reversible for most people. But you have to be brave enough to feed your body adequately, consistently, while it relearns how to function optimally. You have to weather that initial necessary weight gain.
Trust your temperature. Trust your energy. Trust the process. Your permanent metabolic freedom, your energy, your vitality. It's waiting for you on the other side of those first crucial 6 weeks.
Don't let the scale steal that future from you.